I am back with another YouTube video. Today, we are going to be talking about something very specific, which is, I just want to do my topic on basically Alex's and Chris's obsession with athleticism when it comes to this Love is Blind season. And just in general, I feel like that Love is Blind is a show that where if men had a past sports career, they played football in the past, they went pro for 2.5 seconds, or they did soccer like Alex, they tend to shame their fiancés of the fact that they're not enough athletically, or they don't look attractive enough, where Chris was basically flat out bullying Jessica because, he would rather someone that does Pilates. I honestly just need to talk about Chris's and Alex's obsession with physical features, and even Devontae, but Devontae is not in this because it's more so of the skin color. Alex and Chris, they're just so focused on the physicalness, the appearance, the fact that they both work out. Alex even shaded Tim Howard, about soccer, and I honestly have a lot to say about that because it's okay, so you're gonna come on a TV show where you're delusional and you're gonna shade this athlete called Tim Howard. Mind you, I'm so glad that he clapped back at Alex and was like, hey, Alex, you better apologize or else I'ma just run my mouth, which as he should. But I feel this season is just so focused on athleticism too. Alex just constantly talking about soccer, and yes, you could talk about your struggles with the sport, but you don't have to make it your big personality. You do not have to brag about it in a way where it kind of just triggers other people, because the show is about Love is Blind. It's not about Love is Soccer. It's not about Love is Marathons. It's not about Love is Pilates. The show is about Love is Blind. So I want to first let's talk about Alex. Okay, let me start off by saying this. I feel that Alex and Brittany would have been a better couple than Alex and Ashley, simply due to the fact that Alex, I feel that Brittany is just more delusional. She would not have been able to tell whether or not Alex was lying. I'ma just keep it a buck. I feel she really would not have been able to tell on whether or not Alex was telling the truth. I just feel that she would have went through with the marriage with Alex, and Alex would have went through with the marriage with Brittany. I feel that Alex and Brittany would have been a match made in heaven. They are both blind, and I just feel that honestly, Alex should have chose Brittany in the pods, because I really would love to see how that went down. And I feel that if Alex and Brittany was a match, maybe this season would have been a little bit more interesting, due to the fact that obviously those couples needed to swap. They needed to swap. But I don't know, I feel ever since Alex had that conversation with Brittany on vacation, it was very much obvious that Alex was just oh man, I should have chose Brittany. I should have picked Brittany because she's just way more attractive. And I just feel that Alex, he doesn't really like white girls like that, So it's kind of just but I feel Ashley, she is attractive, but when it comes to Alex, he was in so much regret that he didn't pick Brittany. And I just feel that Brittany, she really wanted a marriage. Alex would have been willing to marry her. I feel that Brittany, she was so into wanting Love is Blind to work for her. I just feel that Alex would have been the one for her, because she wouldn't tell on whether or not Alex was telling the truth about his job. She would have let Alex take advantage of her money, her home, her assets. And I feel like that maybe that would have been Alex's way of like getting a place to stay, getting a couch to sleep on, getting a home cooked meal to eat at a warm home. I feel like if Alex went with Brittany, Alex's plan of using a woman for a stable lifestyle would have went so well had he just chose Brittany. Like, I don't know, that's just a thought in mind, because honestly, I don't think that Alex really thought this through by choosing Ashley in the pot, because Ashley is a really smart woman. See, Ashley clocked Alex at the wedding. Now, if it was Brittany and Alex at that altar, Brittany would have not said that speech. Brittany would not have the guts to say that speech. Brittany would have been lying to herself and been like, Alex is the perfect husband for me. Alex is the one for me. So I just feel like that if Alex had chosen Brittany, they would have just been going, and they would have just been blindly in love. They would have been blindly in love, knowing that something is off, but they would still go through with the relationship. They would have still been intimate. And I'm just like, dang, like, why didn't we do a couple swap? Like, I was waiting for a couple swap. And I also wanted to see what would have went down if Ashley was with Devontae. Like, really, like, what would have went down if it was Ashley and Devontae dating? Like, would Devontae be over heels for Ashley? Because Devontae obviously loves white women. Would Ashley would have said yes to Devontae at the altar? But then again, Devontae is really quiet. Would Ashley have clocked Devontae being really quiet, not saying too much? See, this is why I want Ashley on the podcast. Like, I want her on like my podcast because it's just like, I feel like this season would have been more interested if we just had a simple couple swap with Ashley and Devontae and Brittany and Alex. Like, I really want to see like what would have played out between those two couples. Also, put Ashley on Perfect Match and The Bachelorette. But yeah, what would have played out if it was Ashley and Devontae together and then Brittany and Alex? And mind you, I feel like Brittany would have said yes to Alex. Alex would have said yes to Brittany, and we would have been like, oh my God, like, Brittany, this man is a liar. And then either Brittany divorces Alex or they just stay in love blindly forever. Now, let's get into Alex and his obsessed soccer career, his obsessed delusional soccer career, which I just cannot get a hold of. Like, I just can't say anymore. He's delusional. He irritates me as a former athlete. Let's go talk about it. Let's go talk about it now. Alex just preaching about soccer 24/7. I feel like if he's preaching about soccer 24/7, and also his mom is a paid actor, but if he's preaching about soccer 24/7, then it's just like, okay, yes, your 2.5 second pro career, it's just like, okay, so you never really went pro. However, I will give him props that he did get a D1 scholarship to Wake Forest. That's now really big. My thing is just like, if you're continuing to talk about soccer, then why don't you continue doing soccer and take that somewhere else other than a show like Love is Blind? Why don't you go on a documentary and talk about your soccer journey there? Like, I just feel like that it's just necessary to talk about your soccer journey over there on a Netflix documentary and continue doing soccer, because I get it. We are all stuck into our, sports career. Like, when we have to, which honestly, I feel like when it comes to sports, you either have the chance to decide on whether or not you want to stop doing it. But he had surgeries, he had 4 surgeries. That's what stopped his soccer career. My thing is, it's just okay, yes, that happened years ago. But my thing is just if you're ready to settle down, have a wife, have kids, have a home, the obsession for soccer, I don't think is necessary, because it's just like, okay, you're constantly talking about soccer. So it's just like, okay, if I'm marrying you and you're constantly talking about soccer, then is my whole life going to be revolved around soccer when, you know, I'm not really the type of person that is into sports. I'm into marriage. I'm into settling down. I'm not into settling down and like doing soccer forever, which I get it. Sports do come up in, you know, marriage, because, you know, you pass down, like, you know, sports to kids. But at the same time, it's just like, don't you want to just spend time traveling? Now, yes, he does travel nomadically, but I'm just like, don't you want to travel and then also have a stable home? Like, this whole soccer career, it's just like, it's giving like he's bragging, even when he was about to walk down the aisle, when he was walking down the aisle, he was walking down the aisle diagonally. So it was giving like he was obviously scared to, like, you know, face Ashley at the altar, and like all he had to say when he said his vows was, I love that. But like, even just him talking about, like, you know, soccer during the wedding and being like, oh, you know, I'm not even scared to walk down the aisle because, you know, I did soccer. It's when, like, you know, you're walking and, like, you know, you're walking into a soccer tournament and everyone's cheering you on. He talked about soccer even before his wedding. So it's like, you talking about soccer before your wedding. It really just shows that you do not really care about Ashley. Like, him talking about soccer before his wedding, it really showed, like, you know, he never cared about Ashley. He never cared about settling down. He never cared about getting a job. He never cared about applying to jobs for Indeed. He never cared about, like, which I get it. Okay, if you're like people live with their sport forever. People will quit baseball and they still talk about it, you know, years later, which is fine. But if you're going on a dating show where you're meant to, like, you know, find the love of your life and settle down, yes, you can talk about your sport here and there, but like, making that sport like your whole personality, it kind of just shows, like, you know, you put your sport first before your fiance. And I just feel like that, like, you know, if you're about to marry your fiance, you should put your wife before anything. I don't know, that's just me. That's personally just me. But like that, like him talking about soccer at even his wedding, that didn't make any sense to me either, because it's just like, okay, we get it, you played soccer, how do you feel about Ashley? Like, he didn't really say a lot of like good things about Ashley. So it was just like, do you really care about Ashley? Like, I didn't get that. And then it's like, when he talks about soccer a lot, it's like he was like giving like, oh, I'm like, you know, better than this. Like, you know, I'm not scared to walk down the aisle like these other people. Like, I feel like when men talk about, like, you know, their sports career on Love is Blind especially, is giving that, like, you know, they feel like they're better than. They feel like that, like, you know, they could do more, which also what Chris was doing to Jess as well when he was talking about, you know, the marathon running, which we're going to get into in a second. But back on to Alex, I think even a journalist put out some research on Alex, and it was basically like, you know, oh yeah, like, you know, he really is not all that into, like, he really is not all that when it comes to soccer. Like, people were pulling up his roster. But honestly, his D1 scholarship to Wake Forest, that is big, that is impressive. But then it's just like, okay, why couldn't you just say, like, you know, you got a D1 scholarship at Wake Forest, like, you know, you played soccer there. And I get it, like, you know, you can still talk about it, but at the same time, it's just like, all he cared about was soccer the whole season. Like, all he cared about was, like, just soccer. He didn't really have a job. Yeah, it was just like, the soccer kind of irritated me, because it's like, okay, we get it, you play soccer, but it's like he literally shaded Tim Howard. He shaded Tim Howard, and it was basically just like giving as if he what was it, like he just thinks that he's better than everyone. Like, that's what Alex's delusion is. And so you even had Tim Howard come out and be like, Alex, like, I'm gonna give you some time to apologize, you know, and if you don't apologize, like, you know, I'm gonna have a lot to say. Basically, Tim Howard clapped back at Alex on his podcast, and also I think Tim Howard, like, he does his podcast with two other people. They were also clapping back too as well. And I think the reason why Tim Howard found out that Alex shaded him on the show was because I think Tim Howard's kids, like, were like, telling him like about, like, there's this guy named Alex who's like, shading you right now of soccer. And I'm just like, I would be damned if, like, I was this amazing athlete and somebody were to shade me about, like, my sport, how I do my sport, how I, like, I don't know. But yeah, I feel like soccer really does play into Alex's delusions as well. Because it's just like, okay, yes, you had the 4 knee surgeries, or like you had the knee surgeries. If you had the knee surgeries, and like, okay, yes, recover. I don't know. Like, I feel like this season should have been called, like, Love is Soccer, Love is Pilates, Love is Marathons, because Alex and Chris were the 2 biggest examples of why, like, they were like, kind of like, using athleticism to one up on their fiancés. Like, and I know Alex wasn't doing it so much to Ashley, but it's just like him even just shading Tim Howard in a way to, like, make himself feel better in front of Ashley. I'm like, I wonder how Ashley felt about that. I wonder how Ashley felt about Tim Howard speaking out about, Alex throwing shade at him, on his podcast. Like, I really want to know how she feels about that. But honestly, when it comes to Alex, I really just hope that, like, he works on himself. Now, what I do I do feel sorry that, like, he had to end his career short, because when you do end your career short, especially after college, when you wanted to go pro, it really is a sign where it's just like, it's a kind of like a heartbreak, because it's like, okay, not being able to, like, play pro, it kind of just, it's really unfortunate. That is unfortunate itself. Not being able to go pro, that's unfortunate itself. But honestly, I feel like Alex was obsessed with soccer, and maybe there's something deeper when it comes to that. But yeah, I'm gonna give Alex some grace, because he wasn't as bad as Chris. Now, Chris, we got a lot to talk about. Like, when it comes to Chris, the first thing that kind of rubbed me slightly the wrong way, but I still liked him at first, and just like, I still liked him with Jessica at first, was when he was talking about, like, how when he was comparing himself to Jess and being like, yeah, like, I run lots of marathons, like, I run a lot, and she doesn't. Mind you, this guy was trying to go up against a doctor. Like, could you just imagine that? Like, literally a doctor. And thank God Amber said, like, you think you're gonna get another hot doctor. Like, that was a good clap back on Amber's end. But, like, honestly, him, like, just like, kind of like, talking about, like, how he just, like, does marathons a lot, how he runs a lot. It was honestly giving, like, he was trying to one up Jess already, that, like, oh, I play sports, like, I run marathons a lot, so I'm better than you or whatnot. Like, that's what it really was giving. And him then telling Jess, like, I'd rather a woman who does Pilates. It really was just giving, like, okay, you don't do Pilates, so I can't be with you. The minute that he walked into Jessica's home, he felt really insecure about, like, where he was at life. So he thought that he could request to have a woman doing Pilates to, feel better than her. And it was just like, he didn't like the fact that Jess had, like, a bigger home than him. Mind you, Chris, had you treated Jessica right, you could have had a nice home to live in with Jess. I'm just saying. But, like, it was like he was just trying to go up against a doctor, and then him being like, I'd rather like date a woman who does Pilates. That was just so disrespectful on his end. I honestly truly did not like that. I didn't understand that at all. It was really just giving, like, oh, like, now I'm better than you. Like, I want a woman that does Pilates. It's just like, I feel like he just kind of knew he couldn't be with her, because he knew that he would forever be triggered by Jessica's nice home. Like, that's what it was giving. Like, he knew he would be forever triggered by Jessica's nice home. So he just rather, like, be with someone else, and then him, like, you know, letting Bree entertain him. It was just like, you were also never gonna get Bree, because now Bree, like, you know, I heard allegedly that Bree and Connor are still dating. So it's just like, you were never gonna get Bree, because Bree kind of, like, you know, still knew, like, you know, that it was always gonna be Connor. That was it. And I feel like that now Bree, she is growing on me, and I do feel like that, you know, she really is trying to be like, she really is trying to, like, you know, have a relationship with Connor. I just didn't like how, you know, she had that conversation with Connor and, like, kind of just, like, waited till, like, you know, like, near the weddings to break it off with him, after she had that 6-hour train ride with him, and, like, you know, she had that whole date with him. I didn't like that, but then at the same time, it's like, you know what, at least she had an experience with him, and she continued dating him, like, post the show. And I'm glad that, like, you know, at least she was honest that, like, you know, okay, I'm not gonna say yes at the altar, then why go to the altar? I liked her decision on that. And this season, I'm really on, like, you know, the men's side, like, not the men's side, I'm really on the women's side this season. Like, this season, I'm just so team woman. But back on to Chris. Chris is just delusional too. Like, Chris and Alex are both the same delusional people. Like, they just think that, like, you know, they're just all that because they run marathons, they do soccer, they, like, you know, they want someone who does Pilates. And so Chris, even just like him talking about, like, you know, him doing marathons a lot, it was honestly giving, like, oh, like, you know, I'm better than, like, you know, the program because I do marathons, or, like, you know, I'm better than you because I do marathons. Like, that's what it was giving. And also, like, just him having that conversation about Pilates with Jess, it was honestly disturbing too, because it's just like, okay, like, why waste her, not even waste her time. It's just like, you could have maybe worded that conversation in a nicer way, and maybe he didn't really know how mean he came across when he was trying to, like, you know, explain his reason for wanting a woman who does Pilates to Jess. But also, it's just like, that's really a dumb thing to say. Like, you'd rather a woman who does Pilates a lot, because it's just like, okay, what if you do have a woman that does Pilates a lot, and like having a woman that does Pilates, like, how much is that gonna benefit you? Like, how, like, I don't understand how, like, you know, men dating a woman that does Pilates, or just dating someone who does Pilates in general, benefits them. Like, I feel like there's just no, like, okay, all there is just like, they work out, they're fit, they have they're more attractive. And so basically, Chris wanted someone who was, like, more attractive. But I'm just like, Jess was already attractive as she is. Jess does not need to work out to be attractive, okay? She doesn't need to work out to be attractive at all. Like, she is attractive the way she is. Like, she literally is a doctor. She works 24/7, day and night. I mean, that's somebody who already works out. I feel like that's somebody more, that's more than doing Pilates. I feel like that's more than doing Pilates. Like, and people can't even do Pilates every single day. People be doing Pilates like once to 3 times a week. So it's just like, for him to, like, say all that, it's just like, what were you gonna get? And also, like, people who do Pilates, like, what if, like, people who do Pilates, they don't all look the same. So I feel like that Chris really wanted someone who was more attractive. And when he realized, like, you know, like, Jess was, like, too good, like, when he realized that Jess was, like, too good for him, and, like, you know, just had, like, you know, this beautiful home and wasn't attractive, that's when he pulled out the Pilates card. When he stepped into her home, like, he wasn't really able to, like, you know, and, like, I think Jess in an interview said, like, you know, that things were getting weird at one point with Chris, but she ignored it and she just kept it moving. And I just felt that, you know, Jess, that should have been her key to have maybe broken up with Chris right then and there. And also, it's just like, I feel like that the women this season are really blind. Like, they are not seeing the red flags. They are painting their nails red. and just like looking over the red flags. And then when it gets to a point where like, you know, the men break it to them, like they kind of like, you know, they spiral. I don't know. That's just an unpopular opinion. Like even with Devontae and Brittany, I feel like, yes, Brittany deserves to get the backlash that she's getting, because it's like people are being like, oh, like, you know, we've all been there. We've all been there where like, you know, we've fallen for a man. We've all been there where like, you know, we haven't seen the red flags like with a man like Devontae. No, I feel like that Brittany has dated men like Devontae in the past, and she's already seen the red flags when it comes to a guy like Devontae. So it's just like, I feel like that she was just literally staying for the screen time. Like the reason why she didn't leave Devontae is because she wanted the screen time. She was staying for the screen time. So it's just like, why leave if like, and I'm just like, what is it like? This season is one of the better seasons. So I'm just like, okay, Brittany better at least get like 200K followers on Instagram. But it's just like, Brittany deserves the backlash because it's like, I feel like she's been through relationships like this multiple times before Love is Blind. So it's like when you get to Love is Blind, you should already know. You should know when to leave, because I feel like that she's been through this before. Like when you go on Love is Blind, like I hope you have, like when you go on Love is Blind, you've probably been through like, you know, many situationships, many toxic relationships. Ashley said in the interview that she was in a 5-year relationship before Love is Blind. So it's just like, you should see the red flags. And I know Ashley, like, you know, made it to the altar, but at least Ashley made that speech and embarrassed Alex because he deserved it. And at least she, like, you know, left and stood on business and knew her worth. Now, Brittany, on the other hand, she didn't know her worth. She didn't know her worth. So it's just like, and yes, people are defending her, being like, you know, we've all been there, you know, where we just, you know, stay. We haven't really seen like, you know, we haven't really seen the red flags. No, yes, we've all been there. But I feel like that when you get to Love is Blind, like you've already been through so many relationships where it's just like you were able to like, you know, spot the red flags eventually. So then on a show like Love is Blind, you should be able to do the same as well, where you could spot the red flags and not waste your time. I don't know. But anyways, that is it for this video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and also hit that notification bell whenever I post so you get notified. And I will see you guys on my next video. Bye bye.